Good evening, crafting friends. I'm Dorene Decibus from It Begins with Ink and Paper, and welcome to Simply Stamping Sunday. Well, if you live in the Northeast, it has been pretty cold this weekend. I know at least here in New Hampshire it has been, and goodness gracious, it's going to get cold again tonight. Well, thank you for joining me tonight, whether you're here for the live or for the replay, or even if you're here for on my YouTube channel. Thank you for joining me and supporting my small business. I appreciate it. So tonight is week 4 of Pretty Petals, and I'm using the Sweetly Scripted stamp set again for my sentiment. I need some thank you cards, so I'm actually making 4 thank you cards tonight, and I am going to do so by the One Sheet Wonder. So I am excited about that. And these are the 4 cards that I made earlier this week, and everything is going to be in Granny Apple Green and Calypso Coral, and I'll show you what we need for supplies and how we're going to do the stamping. And the cards may look like this, or they may look a little different based on what we stamp tonight. So let me get these all out of the way, and we'll get started with our stamping. So as I said, we're using 2 colors. We're going to use Granny Apple Green for the leaves, and we're going to be using Calypso Coral for the flowers. And I have a little trick to show you tonight too. Okay, so I want to have some white space in the 4 corners of this piece of 8.5 by 11 cardstock. So that's what we need to start. We're going to be cutting this down, but we're going to need it whole to start. And I am going to be stamping in the middle and across, and I'll show you what that's going to look like. So let's get started. And I'm just looking for one other little thing. I have it. That's good. Okay, so let's get started. So I'm going to start by inking up the leaves. And I don't want these to be straight up and down. So I'm going to be, starting at the top, and I'm going to stamp a little bit to my left. Then I'm going to just start going down the page, doing a left to right. And I'm going to come back and take care of that kind of top piece. I'll show you in a minute. But I just want to fill up a nice, almost double layer of the greenery. So we're almost there. I'm just going to get a scrap piece of paper from my notebook. So I can put this down so I won't have too much to clean up off of the glass at the top and the bottom. And I'm just going to put a tiny piece here. And then I am going to put the bottom of this at the top just to fill in that space here. Okay, our first row down the center, so it looks pretty straight forward here. Now I'm going to go across in the middle, and I'm going to, so my middle, let me just take that paper out. I think my middle is probably about here. And then again, I'm going to put a piece of paper so I can stamp off of the sheet. And do the same over here. There we go. So our greenery is all done. And you can see how I have a nice cross going down the middle, but I also have my four corners empty so that I can have some room for a sentiment. Okay, so now I'm opening up the Calypso Coral. And what I'm doing, if I hold the stamp like this, this is going to help me when I go to get this in the right position on my paper. I've been working hard at trying to figure out what is the exact position we need our stamp in. So if you have this opening right here towards the bottom, I'm going to use this part of the stamp and this part of the stamp to line up. So if I use those two places, that is going to help me get my position perfectly. So I am going to just start down here on the bottom, and I'm going to line those two stamps, two flowers up. And if I bring this really up close, let's see if you can see that all right. You can see that I've lined that up pretty well. And so let me just see that you can see that, and then I'll bring it back down again. I just don't want it to be in the wrong place. But if you line up these two flowers and these two flowers with the, oh, it's too close, with the stem, then you can get the flowers pretty close to where you want them to be. So it's those two. I'll show you when we do the cards. But that's what I kind of been practicing today, discovered, because I've been really trying to figure that out since I had somebody ask me. So again, I'm going to line up those two and just keep working my way up and across on the florals. But of course, as I've said before, I have put this everywhere, and I've been very happy with how it stamps. And in this particular design, we're going to have some of those flowers overlap, and that is okay too. It's a little harder when they overlap to see where you're trying to go, so I'm not going to worry too much about that one. And I can already see that I'm going to need a little extra stamping in here. Now, normally when I do this, I try to put something else in those spaces, but I have my two little floral flowers there that I'm going to use to put in. So now we'll go down here, line up those images. There we go, and I just want to get a little color up there. All right, so now where I see that I need a little fill in, I'm just going to add these little buds. There we go. I think that's good. Now we can do some cutting. So I want these to end up to be 4 by 5 1/4, but I'm going to cut them first right into quarters. So I'm going to cut them into the 4 1/4 by 5, and that way when I go to put my cards, I can look at the design and do some trimming. So there's my 4 1/4, and here's my 5 1/2. So let me just set those aside, and I'm going to do the same thing with this. There we go. I'm going to keep this out because I'm going to do a little bit more trimming. So I think what I'm going to do is for this one, take that 1/4 inch off the side and the bottom where there is less, where there's more of the white. And this one, I just want to look at, this one might be good to have like that. So I'm just looking at it to decide how I want to place the card, because I'm going to have 2 cards that are landscape and 2 that are portrait. So I just want to see which would be the best. Let me compare these 2. Well, okay, we'll leave those there for right now, and I'll come back to it. And then for this one, we'll do the same thing. We'll take it off of the extra white spot. Oh, that is so pretty like that. And we'll do the same here. Then they're all cut down, and I can decide which way to make them. Okay, so the first card I'm going to do, oh, let me show you the rest of the things that we need. So for I'm going to use thick basic white cardstock, and on 3 of the cards, and that measures 5 1/2 by 8 1/2. And then on one of these, I'm going to be using a piece that measures 3 1/8 of an inch wide. So there's one. Then on the next card, so here are the rest of the white ones, the basic white, and on one I'm going to use a 4 1/8 by 5 3/8 piece of Calypso coral. I said that all wrong. Calypso coral. And then I need this piece, which is 1 inch wide. And then on the third one, I need a piece of the white again with a 4 1/8 by 5 3/8 piece of Granny Apple Green. And then this one measures another 3/8 of an inch wide piece. Then I'm going to have one card be on the Coastal Cabana, and I need an inch wide piece of the Granny Apple Green and a 4 by 5 1/4 piece of basic white. So let's actually start with this one. And for this one, I am going to use this piece. Okay, we'll set those aside. So I have this beautiful piece. What I'm going to be doing is I haven't done my last bit of stamping, sorry. I've got one more bit of stamping to do. Let me just grab a scrap of paper. So, I'm going to use this paper here. And I know when I say scrap, I'm using a big piece. But what I want to do is actually stamp my sentiment from the Sweetly Scripted. It says "A million thanks." And I'm going to stamp it just right along this piece of 5.5 by 8.5 basic white paper. I'm just going to separate it a bit. This gives me a lot of options as I cut and get them to where I want them to be. So what I'm going to hope for is I want them to be about 3/4 of an inch wide. So I am going to take a little bit off this bottom and then go in. And actually I don't like this one because I actually don't like 2 of them. So I'm going to stamp 2 more. Because on 2 of them I've got a little blurry edge. And I'm not using the edges on all of them, but I want to have good samples here. There we go, much better. And better. Okay. So, as I said, I want them to be 3/4 of an inch wide. So there's our first one. Take a little bit off of this one and go to 3/4. Oh, this one is the one I didn't like. Okay, take a little bit off of this one and go to 3/4. There's 2. Take just a tad off this one and go to 3/4. And this one I could just go to 3/4. So now I can be cutting those pieces up as I go along. Okay, so for this first one, we are going to take our piece of Calypso coral, fold it in half. This piece is going to go on the inside, and again, I want to be able to stamp off, so I am going to be using, I'm going to actually stamp the larger image. It's going to come off the paper a little bit, but instead of using the smaller one, I just want to coordinate this. So I'm going to stamp on the right side. Gives me plenty of room to write my thank you note. Take my flower. So what I'm going to be doing is lining it up to this here and this here. Those 2 sets of flowers. And that's going to give me, let's hold it right though, and that's going to give me everything looking good. So you can see how they match up really nicely. So that now is going to go on the inside of the card. There we go. And this piece is going to go on the front of the card in just a minute. I'm going to take my 1-inch piece and I'm going to get this exactly, yeah, I want it just like that. So I'm going to put this on and then I'm going to cut the edge off, because that fits the front of the card nicely. So I'm going to have this end with a million thanks. It just has a tiny bit of a swirly part at the end. And then I'll just take my paper snips and cut this piece off. And add some adhesive. Put this on the front. Have it go across the top a little bit. Add my adhesive. And then put this on the front of the card. And we're good to go with our first card. And there is card number 1. Okay, let me set that aside. And the next card I'm going to do is going to use, I think, this one. All right, so this is going to go on a piece. And I'll take one of my million thanks. There we go. This little piece and this. So the first thing we're going to do is layer this on the piece of Granny Apple Green. I really like this color combination. I just wanted something really not winter today after it's been so cold. So that's there. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually cut this. So we are pretty close to the S and we're pretty close to the A. This piece is going to go not quite halfway, just a little less than halfway on the front. It's a little off. I know with a handmade card, it's all right if it's not perfectly straight, but for me, I really want it perfectly straight. Let me just get that right to the end. That looks better. There we go. I'm going to hold that off because we're going to use some dimensionals to put that on, and I want to do some stamping in this card. So let's grab my bone folder. Hi, Lisa. Thanks. I'm just already so done with winter, and I shouldn't be because it's just starting. Actually, I have to say my favorite day of the year is the solstice, and it is my favorite because starting today, the days get longer, and they're no longer getting shorter. And so that does make me happy. And since I don't have to go back to work until January 6th, I know that's like 15 days of it getting longer, just, you know, a minute at a time or a couple minutes at a time. And so I'll really notice it on my commute. So again, I'm just going to stamp this floral image on the inside of the card. And like I said, I still have lots of room to write my thank you note in here. And now I can add this to the front of the card. When you need to make several cards at once, a one-sheet wonder is a really nice way to go because it really allows you to, quickly make, in this case, 4 cards. So I'm going to add some dimensionals to the back of this just to pop it up. And we're just going to have a peek of that Calypso coral on either side. And that is card number 2. All right, going with card number 3 now. Let's take our piece that has the Calypso coral and let's fold the 5.5 by 8.5 piece of cardstock in half. This one is going to be another one that is going to be vertical, and I'm going to take this piece to do that, or more a portrait style. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to place this so that it's having a border just at the top and the bottom. And this will go right across the front of the card. So I'm going to get my A where I'd like it. There we go. And now I can just trim off these ends. And I am just going to put this flat on the card front, and then we'll mount it onto the Coastal Cabana. So I want a little bit of this. So this is going to go this time not quite halfway again, but a little higher than halfway. I don't like putting my sentiments right in the middle. I like having a little bit of, just have it a little bit of interest by putting them, higher or lower. So again, this is just a 1/8 of an inch bigger in size. So we're just going to have a little tiny border at the top and the bottom, just enough to see that color. And then I'm going to take this and just put it right on the front. And here's card number 3. Okay, our last card. We are going to use it. I think it's fine to use it this way. And what I'm going to be doing this time is, again, I have that 5.5 by 8.5 piece of basic white thick, and then I have this strip that measures closer to a 1/2 inch, and then my 3/4 inch. So what I'm going to do first is do the stamping on the inside again. This one's going to be a landscape card. So again, I'm just going to stamp that inside with the same image in the same colors. This makes it easy too, because you know, using the same color combo and the same inks, you're not having to get a lot of stuff out. You just can keep it pretty basic. Line up those 2 sets of small flowers with their stems. There we go. Again, we have plenty of room to write. So I'm going to just set that aside while we get this all said and done. So I'm going to do something a little different. I am going to take this and I am going to cross it, put it right across the card front like this. And then I'm going to take my Million Things, I'm going to cut it down a little bit and put it right over the top of that, but with some dimensionals. So let's start with getting this in place the way I'd like it. I just want it for this card to do something a little unexpected. So we're going to go right across like that. Then I'm going to cut these ends off. There we go. I'm going to trim this down. So I'm going to take just a little bit off this end and a little more off this end so that it will sit right over that green piece. And I'm going to put dimensionals here to raise this up. And then I'm going to use dimensionals to raise the whole panel up on the front of the card. So it will be kind of double dimensionaled, if that's a word. My goal each year is to have my cards postmarked before Christmas, and I'm going to make it again. They're going to the post office tomorrow, so I'm really happy about that. I've had them made since, I would say, the end of November, beginning of December. But boy, I've just been so busy doing everything else. Okay, so let's get these off. Joyce, you really have to try it because it's not hard. And the worst thing you will have to do is just turn your paper over and start stamping again. I usually do that and change it up as I'm going along. Okay, so that is our last card. And I really am happy with, I like this one, how the angle is different on the sentiment. So the 4 cards we have made tonight. Let me pull them all out again. Let's see, I've got those 2. Okay, so let's start with our last one. It was a landscape, and I have another landscape with the Calypso coral background. And then we had 2 that are portrait. And so those are our 4 cards for tonight. And try it. It is a lot of fun, and it does make card making pretty easy. So I will be back next week for week 5 because we have 5 Sundays in December. And next week I'm going to do a bunch of easy fun folds with this set. And I'll probably still be using this. I really like this set and gives me a chance to use it all. So thank you for joining me tonight. I hope you have a fabulous Christmas, and I will see you Friday night for Fun Fold Friday and Sunday for the last edition of this this stamp set and for this calendar year of Simply Stamping Sunday. Good night, everybody. Bye-bye.